If you're a volleyball player and you want to learn how to get rid of knee pain as you're jumping higher, you want to know the best workout for volleyball to still lose fat, and you want to figure out how to structure your workout so you can fit everything in, then you are going to want to watch the rest of this video because I'm deep diving into some Q's and A's today. So this is a YouTube format that I call VBSC Q&A. It's a very low edited, just very unscripted format where I answer your questions on a YouTube video. And we pull these questions primarily from our VBSC community group called Volleyball Workouts, as well as on Instagram or YouTube comments if we need it. And so more on that in here in a little bit, but this is just going to be really unscripted. I just have my notes in here in front of me that I'll be pulling the questions from, and we will get right into it. Really quick, if you don't know who I am, my name is Greg Hersig, also known as the Volleyball Strength Coach. I'm a former Division I All-Conference opposite. I played for Ball State University. I've got a master's degree in sports performance. I've trained over 1,000 volleyball players online, and now I make content online to help other volleyball players jump higher, get rid of knee pain, optimize their body, everything like that. So we are going to dive into question 1, and this is pulled from an Instagram comment. And the question says, I'm 36 years old. I've been training a lot recently. I'm jumping higher and down about 10 pounds, but it seems like now that I'm jumping higher, the impact on my left knee is causing me pain after about an hour or so of play. Is there a way to help with this, or am I just getting old? And I will immediately answer the second aspect of that question, and it is definitely not that you are just getting old. I just reject that premise in general as someone who is about to turn 36 myself, and my knees have never felt better. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting conundrum because, you know, as you are jumping higher, now there's more landing forces coming down on your knees. There's more force required, or you're producing more force to propel you into the air. And if you haven't properly adapted your tendons in a way to be able to handle that force, then you are definitely going to get some knee pain. So now there is the advantage. This guy said he's down about 10 pounds and he's only about 180 pounds, which is definitely not overweight by any means for volleyball. It's a really good weight to be at. But long story short is you just have to do all of the normal things that we do to prepare your tendons for impact forces. So get the tendons bigger, get the tendons stronger, all of those type of things. And it's not really, it's probably not correlated. It might be correlated to increased vertical jump, but it's like you have to do these things regardless, right? So the big things that we do for knee pain is going to be like a good proper warm up with some kind of like backwards sled or backwards treadmill, something just to get some blood flowing to the knees, getting that tissue warmed up. Doing some isometrics where you're picking a couple different isometrics like a wall sit, a split squat, a quarter squat that we call like a Peterson step iso hold, and holding those at the beginning of your workouts for anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds and progressively overloading that over time. So typically what we do is we'll take 2 isometrics. A leg extension is a really good example, one of the best ones you can do. In fact, we'll do usually 2 of those, 1 or 2 of those. Hold that for 30 to 60 seconds, and then we'll do 2 to 3 rounds of that depending on how bad your knee pain is. After between a 3 to 5 minute backwards walk or some progressive overload on a backwards treadmill. So that's one thing. Make sure we do the good warm up, do our isometrics. The next thing is going to be your lifting. So you want to lift in a way that is going to increase the size and strength of your tendons. And for the most part, general normal lifting, like normal squatting, normal lunging, normal things like that, where you're getting stronger and overloading through there, is going to strengthen your tendons. But we can have sometimes, like which may be the case of this gentleman, where it's like you didn't train them enough to keep up with the muscular changes or the neurological, the nervous system changes that are now getting you to jump higher. So what you can do is you can introduce some tempo into those exercises. So for example, you can go down it with a slow eccentric 5 to 6, maybe 8 seconds on the way down of the squat. That is going to train the tendon to a higher degree than going at a normal tempo. And then you can do it with pauses. So you go down into the squat, you pause at a specific range of motion for 3 to 5 seconds before you come up. And that tempo training, which we use, and we use triphasic training, you can see the books are behind me, extremely effective at training the tendons and getting them better prepared to handle those landing forces and those jumping forces. Because really, like, it's really landing forces. Landing forces are what you're going to feel a whole lot more with knee pain than jumping. It's you have to be able to absorb that impact. Another thing you can do is actually daily isometrics. So we talked about the isometrics within the workouts, but you can actually do isometrics at home every single day, multiple times a day if you want to. If you do have knee pain and you want to get rid of it more quickly than not, you can actually do isometrics every single day, one set of 30 to 45 seconds each leg, or you can do it 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times just throughout the day. Whenever the tendon starts to flare up or when you have some time, you can do that. And we've had clients get really, really good success with that. So definitely not getting old. You just want to make sure you are training those tendons. Another aspect on that getting old longevity side is at certain times taking that joint through a full range of motion. So doing full deep squats, doing ATG split squats, doing something where you are taking that tendon through that full range of motion is going to be just really beneficial for the longevity piece. And there's an aspect of this that as I'm getting older, have been doubling down on, which, like, if you want to go really heavy, do a reduced range of motion, so a half squat instead of a full squat. If you are going to go through a full range of motion, then you're going to want to keep that lighter with like a higher rep range. Like at 35, turning 36, I'm probably not going to do a lot of heavy deep squatting anymore, just because it's like a higher injury risk for someone who has had a lot of injuries. So right now I am doing a lot of deep squatting, but it's like 8 to 10 reps. And as I transition to heavier squatting, again, in a more specific phase, I will reduce the range of motion on that. So proper warm up, doing your isometric holds, adding tempo to some of your lifts temporarily until pain goes away, doing daily isometrics, and then still making sure you're taking your knees through a full range of motion at some point. So all things we use pretty consistently to get some crazy knee pain results with our athletes. Question number 2, this is from our community group. I would love a post on managing hamstring tendonitis, especially when you feel it on or slightly above the back of the knee. And we actually have had a few clients dealing with this. Not sure the cause, and I'm not sure there is a singular cause, but the good part about this, if it is truly a tendonitis type of thing, is we treat the majority of tendonitis situations the same way. So whether it's knees or shoulders or hamstrings or whatever it might be, the same principles apply. And that is, we can do some isometrics, we can get some high rep blood flow type of warm-ups, and we can do tempo training. And so it's all kind of the same. It's not like the tendons in your knee are different than the tendons of your hamstring, are different than the tendons in your rotator cuff. They're all tendons, they all react to stimulus in a very similar way. So what I would say in this instance is you can warm up with, if you wanted to stick with sled, something like a forward sled drag where you're holding a handle and pulling the sled behind you. And you're staying more upright. That's going to be very hamstring associated. You can do some high rep hamstring curls at the beginning of a workout just to pump a lot of blood flow. So like 15 to 20 reps with a really low load just to get some blood flowing and get that tissue warmed up. You can do some isometric holds, which I really like a hamstring bridge isometric hold. So think of a glute bridge where you're laying on your back with your knees about 90 degrees, you're pushing your butt up in the air, right? Then move your feet further away so your knees get straighter and straighter and straighter. And the straighter your knee gets, the more you go to your hamstrings, the less you go to your glutes. And you can do that as an isometric hold. So feet out almost straight, push your hips up in the air, you'll feel a lot in your hamstrings. And do that as an iso. And as you can progress, you can even go to single leg. And it's actually surprisingly difficult to do that. You can do even, if you want to do like a leg curl iso, something like that. You can add tempo to your hamstring work. If we're looking at just above the knee, that you're going to feel that a lot more in a knee flexion exercise. So doing a slow eccentric or pauses on a leg curl is going to be a really effective way to treat that. Nordics are probably too intense because those are technically an overloaded isometric, which is a good exercise, but not something you want to do in like an injury or pain type of situation. So I would do like a single leg curl and do 2 to 3 weeks of doing slow eccentrics on that. And then 2 to 3 weeks of doing pause at the top or at a painful level. And that should handle. There could be some things where we're looking at like, we have to figure out like why that's happening in the first place. Like what's causing that? Is it a gait issue? Are you, when you're moving, you're pulling with your hamstrings too much, so it's putting too much pressure instead of like driving through the ball of your foot or the way you're running or the way you're moving? We would want to look at that as well. But we can still use a lot of those same principles that we use for knee pain to help with hamstring tendon pain as well. Question number 3. This is a great question. I got this in the DMs on Instagram. What's something you wish more young volleyball players understood about strength and conditioning early in their development? And this is something that I've been thinking about this particular aspect a lot. It's just take a step back and look at a lot of the highest jumpers in the world. And what they did is when they were younger, they spent a lot of time jumping as high as they possibly can and jumping a lot. So like every day dunking or, low rim dunking, whatever, every single day, like until their body like couldn't handle it anymore. And they would basically do that through their, their preteen, teen ages until they got to the point where like injuries started to kind of creep up, knee pain or Achilles pain or things like that. At that point, they would start to take the weight room more seriously, and then they would compound a bunch of strength training on that. So what happened is they used their childhood and their teen years to build an extremely efficient elastic system and a very high level of elasticity through their muscles, their tendons, and their fascia. And then once they, not necessarily capped out on that, but once they start and needed to, then they added a lot of strength training on top of that to increase their muscular strength, muscular size, and muscular power. Because really the best jumpers in the world, it's a combination of having a really high level of elasticity and a really high level of strength. And so you look at volleyball, you get a lot of guys who are really elastic, they're really skinny, they're really bouncy, and you can then use the weight room with those guys to add that muscular power, assuming you're not taking away from their elasticity, and then you can get some really pretty freaky jumpers. Now, the reason I say this as an important thing for younger kids is as you get older, like after the age of like 25 or so, it becomes substantially more difficult to become more elastic. So you need to do that and want to really spend a lot of time doing that when you're young. So like I said, that means jumping basically as often as you're able to, but also playing sports. So like sprinting, cutting, changing direction, all of like jumping off of stuff, jumping on a trampoline, those type of things. Anything you can do to become more elastic, you really want to do a lot of that when you're younger, and you can get the really big progress and changes in your elastic system when you're younger. And that doesn't mean don't lift weights. You can lift weights pretty much. My kids are 3 and 5, and sometimes they'll go out and lift some really basic weights with me. But you want to take the time when you're younger to really develop that elasticity, because you can't develop that as much when you're older. You can always get stronger and more powerful in the weight room. You can't always get more elastic. At least it's much more difficult. So that's a big one there. Really good question. Number 4, how do I structure my workouts to fit everything in? For example, plyos, lifting, knee rehab, upper body, volleyball, etc. So this is a very it depends type of question, which you hear a lot from strength conditioning or fitness people, because there's a lot of variables. So what I would do with this person is the first thing I would do is figure out how often they're playing volleyball. That is going to help us determine how often we're going to lift weights. We would determine what portion of their competitive season they're in. Is this off season? Is it preseason? Is it in season? And then we would use those two things, how often they're playing and what part of the competitive season they're in, to decide how often we're going to lift and what we are going to do in those workouts. And for the most part, most of our athletes that we work with are doing 3 or 4 lifting days per week, unless they're in season, maybe they do 2. If they're doing 3 days a week, it's an upper body, a lower body, and a full body, or sometimes 3 full body, less often now than it used to be. If it's 4 days a week, we're doing 2 upper body days and two lower body days. So that gives us, essentially 2 days of lower body to fit all of this stuff in. And we separate that into, let's just look at the lower body first. One day of the lifting, we do more plyometrics and jumping. The other day of the lifting, which is either the second lower body day or the full body day, we do more speed and agility work. Unless we're hyper focused on vertical and jumping, then maybe we jump on both days. But more frequently now, we do speed and agility work on the second day. If you are young and you have really fast recovery times, you can have a separate jumping day, you can have a separate speed and agility day. But right now, what's working best for our clients is basically day 1 is lower body lifting, jumping, plyometrics, that type of stuff. And then we do upper body, which we're focusing on just building general strength, working on shoulder strength. We do core on that day as well. Lower body 2 is going to be lower body lifting and then speed and agility work. So it could be lateral speed, it could be change of direction, it could be just sprinting. And then upper body 2 is the same, working on just very general upper body strength, mobility, core strength, everything like that. So the specific examples, plyo lifting, knee rehab, upper body volleyball. Knee rehab goes in every workout, every lower body workout, kind of that structure that I said before. We warm up, we do our isos, we do our plyos, we do our power kind of jumping, and then our main exercises, and then our accessory exercises. So I'm going to run through that one more time. Typical lower body day. We do our warm up, so sled work. We do our isometrics for knee pain or Achilles pain, prevention, that type of stuff. Then after that, we would do our plyometrics. which is going to be our really faster ground contact time type of things, very elastic stuff. Depending on the phase, maybe we're doing some power jumping after that. So max effort approach jumps, weighted jumps, counter movement jumps, one of those. Then we would do Olympic lifting fits in there too, like our power work. Then we would do our main strength movement, our squat, our deadlift, our lunge, whatever it might be. And then we do our accessory exercises after that, hamstrings, calves, another knee exercise, depending. So that's a pretty general exercise layout. And this leads really well if you are confused about all this stuff and want to not have to think about it and have me implement all of this stuff for you. I have all of my workouts in our volleyball community. It's called Volleyball Workouts. It's a community that I run between school and Trainerize, where you get access to 10 different volleyball workouts, kind of built into 2 different tracks, depending on how experienced you are. We do a weekly call. I post in the community every single day. You can ask questions in there. I have a step-by-step basically course on how to be successful, and then there's some educational pieces into that course as well. So if you are interested in trying that out, I do have a 7-day free trial of that. You can check that in the pinned comment as well as the description of this video if you do want a 7-day free trial to all of my volleyball workouts. And then question number 5, what is the best diet to lose body fat while still being able to play volleyball? So the best diet is the one that you can successfully stick to. There's no real best diet for any singular person, or not even a singular person at any given time, because the best diet for you now might not be the best diet for you in the future. Now, what we want to think about, because we're talking about losing body fat while still being able to perform, is the calorie deficit. So if you do want to lose body fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit, at least kind of like throughout the week, right? So we want to do a small enough calorie deficit where you are able to lose weight, but not so big that you sacrifice volleyball performance. So if you immediately take like 1,000 calories out of your day, out of your total calories you can consume, then that's probably going to negatively affect your performance. But if you start at like 250 or 500 calories a day reduction, then at that point you can most likely still have enough fuel to perform your activity. And so what we do is we start people on like about 250 or so. We keep them on there for a few weeks. They will start to lose some weight. Not a lot will change from the performance side because it's not even a super noticeable amount. Then when weight loss slows, then maybe we go to 500, we stay there for a few weeks, and then maybe we go to 750, we stay there for a few weeks, and maybe by then we go to 1,000, and it's a lot smaller of a jump, so it's a lot less noticeable. Your metabolism has adapted a little bit, which is why we need to keep going down, and no, it's not a massive jump. But what we do as we get to those deeper ends of the calorie deficit is we actually do a little bit more of what's called calorie cycling, which means some days you eat more calories, some days you eat less calories instead of eating the same amount every single day. So the days, for example, that you play volleyball, maybe we'd only do a 250 calorie deficit instead of a 750 calorie deficit. Maybe the days where you have lower body workouts, we have a little bit less of a deficit, and we just make up for that on another day. So just for math's sake, we use the example of a 1,000 calorie deficit every day. Over the course of a week, that's a 7,000 calorie deficit. Instead of that, it's like some days where maybe calorie neutral, some days we're 500, some days we're 1,000, and maybe that means some days we have to be 1,500 just to make up the total. It just depends on where the client is at that standpoint. But it's like upper body days don't need as much fuel. Rest days obviously don't need as much fuel, because if you're thinking about like these calories are just fuel for your performance and your ability to recover. So it's like the more activity we do, the more calories we want to consume to be able to perform optimally in that activity. The other thing you want to make sure is as you're doing this is you're keeping your carbohydrate intake high. So there's a big myth around, well, if I want to lose weight, I have to reduce my carb intake. And not only is that not true, but that's going to be very detrimental to performance. So on those days, we want to, that we have the performance. So the lower body day, the volleyball, you want to keep your calorie intake high, and that difference in the calories, so that the calories we're adding in for like that higher day, you mostly want those to come from carbs so that you are able to adequately fuel. I guess I should say that like carbs are your primary fuel source for volleyball. And so you want to make sure that you're still consuming a good amount of carbohydrates on those days so that you can positively influence performance, right? So just to recap on that really quick, start at a low deficit where you're just reducing, cleaning up your diet for the most part will fix that. And start at maybe only a 250 calorie deficit a day. See if you lose weight. Once weight loss stops, or if you're not losing weight, go to 500. You'll start to lose weight. Once weight loss stops, go to 750. Same thing, you know, go 1,000 or as low as you need to hit your goal and maintain performance. But as we get deeper in those calorie deficits, we want to make sure we keep calories a little bit higher on our workout days, or primarily our lower body workout days and volleyball days, which means even lower calories on rest days and upper body days. And then make sure you keep carbohydrate intake high so that you are able to have the fuel you needed for those activities. Because I mentioned carbohydrates are our main fuel for lifting, or for volleyball. They are also our main fuel for lifting. So if you do want kind of like a structure, like a diet to follow, I really like something called the vertical diet. And the vertical diet, ironically, has nothing to do with increasing your vertical. It was created by Stan Efferding, got really popular like 10 years or so with mostly strongman competitors and like CrossFit athletes, because it was all designed around being able to hit all of your micronutrient and macronutrient needs through the diet alone and being really easy on digestion. So you've got these strongman competitors eating like 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 calories a day, but they can have things that are still easily digested, and they're not like just destroying their gut by, you know, the diet they're eating. Now, it can be used for whatever, but it gives you a really good framework and a structure of like what foods are really good to eat for performance. So if you just want to look up, like Google search the vertical diet, I'm sure you can still like purchase the ebook or whatever, but you'll be able to see images of like the baseline foods that they think everyone should eat every day. And then that's like the horizontal aspect. And then the vertical aspect comes from getting your macronutrient intake, so your carbs, your fat, your protein, from increasing like rice intake and then like red meat intake or whatever kind of meat intake. So I like that as like a basic healthy nutrition structure that a lot of people can follow. And if we have a client who's like just wants kind of a basic framework, that's where I like to send them to a lot. So yeah, those are my 5 questions for this week. Hopefully you enjoy this type of video. I like to do this kind of unscripted, a bit more raw. You know, I'm not going to edit out any of the ahs or ums or mistakes or anything like that, because I think just people are just craving like authenticity and realistic interactions with people these days. So if you like this type of video, let me know down in the comments. And if you want your question answered on this, then post a question down in the comments. Now, the priority for these questions is from our community group, like I mentioned before. So if you want to jump in that community group, there's going to be a link in the description and the pinned comment on here. You can do a 7-day free trial where you get access to all of my workouts, the community group. I do a weekly call. I post in there every single day, whether it's for additional accountability or motivation or information and whatever it might be. We do film review, so I can look at your volleyball film, I can look at your jump film. A lot of people are asking about jump technique right now, and it is going to be just at eventually some point, I already know this, the biggest volleyball community on any kind of platform like that. So right now, 7-day free trial. At the time of me posting this, it's going to be $49 a month, which is an absolute steal for everything you get with this. But if you want to check that out, link is going to be in the description and in the pinned comment. And yeah, make sure you leave a comment down below with what you want me to answer next week. Make sure you like the video, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one.